Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the 3rd and 20 Dynasty Podcast. I'm JT, joined by the usual crew of Frank, Jake, and Lounis. This is Season 2, Episode 18. We are on Week 14 of the NFL season, so we're probably 1 week out from NFL playoffs. I know our home league is in a tight playoff race. I'm sure a lot of you are too, so I bet there's a bunch of mixed listeners. People are out there looking for Devy content. People are looking to see what trades and what players to cut before the playoffs and whatnot. I think we got everything for you guys. So let's just kick it off. Let's get right into it with the news and notes. Starting us off, it seems to be the big topic of the week, a thing that I'm sure all of you are about to cringe to do, but I think we should all do it, everyone. Let's all pat ourselves on the back, give ourselves a nice pat on the back, because we as a podcast had Javonte Williams as a running back 1. And he's just taken Twitter, Reddit by storm. Keep Trade Cut has him ranked as running back 4. Javonte Williams, boys.
We aren't selling. We are not selling. Well, it's funny if you look at some of the popular Twitter accounts. Apparently, nobody had Javonte Williams as their RB1. Which, I mean, to be completely honest, I think that's just false. Like, I feel like a decent amount of people were on the Javonte Williams hype train along with us. And like lastly, you're not gonna, as a rookie, get that high on Keep Trade Cut without like a bandwagon following to a certain extent, because that's just kind of how it works, right? If you're one of the dudes that has no truthers, then you're gonna just get bogged down. So, Javonte Williams, truthers, we are here and we are not selling until he's RB1.
Oh well,
and then we're hitting the sell button very hard.
No, we're never selling. We never sell. We never talk.
It was weird. They were like mad that like people called him correctly. Like they were almost like mad. It's like there's no way you got. And we're like, yeah, a lot of people said it.
We had a ridiculous amount of tackles in college.
Just watch the Miami game. He's just like taking grown humans and throwing them around as he runs for like 300 yards.
And it's exactly what you pointed out when we were breaking down all the rookies in the offseason in preparation for rookie drafts. His forced missed tackle rate is just absurd. It was absurd in college. He leads the NFL in it right now. And it's just, I'm a little surprised it's stayed this high throughout the entire season, but can't say we didn't call it.
Well, look, I mean, it was an easy prospect to see when you were talking about the draft class he was in. He was coming out with like, the other top guys were basically all seniors. He even supplanted the senior on his team in Michael Carter, who ended up being, I think, a 3rd-round pick, 4th-round pick, whatever he was. It was just like there's so many good signs and pro signs in Javonte's favor, and the Broncos even traded up for him. So, yeah, I don't know. I think as a podcast, we did a good job. I don't know. Frank's touched on this point, though, before. He even touched on it last week with the Narcos Jr. analogy, where it's like, yeah, we had him as a running back 1, but to me, like, I didn't like the other running backs. So, like, it's hard for me to fully victory lap this one because, like, I probably wasn't as high on Javonte as some of you guys were in the grand scheme of things, like in overall total running back rankings. So, I don't know. I mean, I still feel good about, like, where I had him in the rookie draft and everything, but, like, I probably could have even put him up a little higher, to be honest. I think a lot of people could have. A lot of the most vocal people on Twitter who are like, I had Javonte as running back 1, could have had him up a little higher than they did. But, yeah.
Wait, that's what, real quick before we move on to the next topic, it's one thing that's interesting is that you see so many people, the same people that victory lapped Jamar Chase are now, it seems like, victory lapping Jalen Waddle, Javonte Williams, where I feel like their ADP
victory at Jalen Waddle
was but the thing is that Javonte Williams' ADP was very close to Jamar Chase's. You know, if you were going to pick one of them, unless you just had a horde of draft picks, you probably had to make the decision. Oh, do I want Chase? Do I want Javonte? I mean, if you were choosing between the two, it seems like there wasn't really a wrong answer, but it just is curious to me to see, like, A, how many draft picks these fucking people have, or B, like, there's some sort of disconnect because you had to make the choice between one of the two. You can't have all the good players. You can't like everyone. You gotta make the decision on one guy at the end of the day. So
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think you don't have a wrong
watch out here in the jungle of fantasy football analysis.
Yesterday it was last week it was Narcos Jr. Now we're in the jungle.
Yeah, we're in the jungle.
Well, Javonte is taking it. Like, at what point is it too high? I guess is the last
Right
thing we'll touch
now
on with
at
him.
RB4.
See,
I don't
that's where I have a
know
tough
if I
time.
agree with that because
RB4 is high.
Well, I
moving
just
forward,
remember.
do you think they re-sign Melvin Gordon this offseason?
No.
I don't see it. I could
I
see
don't
them
even know if
bringing
I care.
I could see them bringing in another back so Javonte's not the only running back in that offense, obviously. But bringing back a guy like Melvin Gordon, who's probably going to demand a decent contract after the season he's had, I just don't see them doing that. I could see them bringing in more of a role player behind Javonte and giving him a bigger workload, which is only going to make him maintain value at worst.
I don't know, dude.
I
Like,
mean, running back 4 is high.
see,
But we
thing
had
is
the
for
same
me-
conversation last year with
the thing-
Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Swift.
And with Justin Jefferson, a lot of people were kind of
Yeah,
saying, "Oh, well, you have to sell him at wide receiver 1," which I was on that train at first until I watched some of the Vikings games back before my Game Pass expired, and it's like, well, this guy's insane. Like wide receiver 1, whether he's wide receiver 2, valued whatever. Like, okay, and unless I'm getting a franchise for him, I'm gonna keep the dude because he's a stud. To me, it's a similar thing with Javonte. I mean, you guys were talking about guys that were high on Javonte. I had him as a top 10 running back coming into the season before he stepped foot on the ground. Now that he's RB4, like, why am I selling? Unless I am getting the house, I'm not selling, which I don't think people are willing to offer the house right now. So to me, he's staying on the roster, baby. We are riding him right now.
Oh, I didn't mean necessarily to trade him while he's high. I just meant in terms of like, if you did your running back rankings right now, is he in your top 4? For
Yeah,
me, he's probably somewhere 6, 7, 8, a little bit lower. His top 4s.
I probably have him at 5 or 6. My question to you though, Frank, right, is I'm walking up to you. You have Javonte Williams, and I'm going to try and make a trade with you. I'll toss out 3 different names. Tell me which ones yes, no, and then at the end you could say which you're more inclined to if you say no or yes to all of them. Javonte for Joe Burrow.
No,
You're holding Javonte?
most of the time.
Okay.
It is a little bit circumstantial there because we kind of go back into if you don't have any quarterbacks and you need a piece to build your team around long term. Well, Joe Burrow is one of the better pieces to do that.
Mhm.
If I have a good team that has like Kirk Cousins and Tua, even though I could look to upgrade, I'd rather have the running back of Javonte's caliber at least.
Also, point of clarification in case there's any new listeners, like we're talking Superflex. So Javonte or Kyle Pitts?
Fuck you. That's a tough one.
I'm still
He's in
leaning
trouble
Pitts.
here. You're going Pitts?
I think I'm leaning Pitts because Pitts was one of 3 players that I had above Javonte in my rookie rankings.
Lewis, would you have taken Burrow there in the other trade scenario?
Burrow's tough. I think I'm kind of in a similar position as Frank, where it's like if you have no QBs, where like you're not going to be competing for like the next 2-3 years, then yes, I would take Burrow. But if you have like 2 startable quarterbacks that you're like trying to win over the next 2-3 years, I'm probably leaning Javonte.
All right, and then last one. Let's see. I don't know which one's going to be the most interesting for you guys. Let's do Javonte or DeAndre Swift.
I mean, for me, it's Javonte, but that's also kind of coming from a somewhat DeAndre Swift hater. I thought you were going to throw out Christian McCaffrey because that's one that I'm a little bit back and forth on. I still think I'd rather have Christian McCaffrey than Javonte Williams, even though he's above him on keep trade cut.
Yeah, Christian McCaffrey
It's crazy.
is plummeted.
McCaffrey is running back 5 right now to Javonte's running back 4, which is just something heading into the season I don't think any of us expected.
Yeah, well, keep trade cut has Nick Chubb and Christian McCaffrey at the exact same, which, I mean, Nick Chubb is a very good player, don't get me wrong, but like if you're talking about age and everything, they're the same age. Christian McCaffrey just gets like 10 more points per game when they're both healthy. And it's just
I'm gonna pronounce this wrong. P2 Thar. Thank you so much, dude, for the kind words in the chat.
Oh,
we record Tuesday
we
nights. If
appreciate
you're
it.
listening to the pod, get in the chat.
Yeah, I forget there are people in the podcast listening to us on podcasts that probably miss a lot of visual stuff. So if you want to hit us up on YouTube and see stuff. All right. Where was I going next? Oh, let's just move on. Minshew Mania returns. That was another weird situation where on Twitter, I don't know if you guys saw it, there's the whole Gardner Minshew and the Eagles beat the Jets, and some guy on Twitter was like, why is he celebrating so hard? It's the Jets. Like, me and 11 people could have beat the Jets. Like,
I
and
hate that, dude.
Twitter just went after that guy like a crazy. Like,
Why
just,
shouldn't he? It was his first start this entire season.
I know. Lounis, you have Jalen Hurts in our league, right? And you saw what Gardner Minshew did. Is there actually any concern? Like what's the panic meter
about Minshew?
Yeah, like a 1 to 10 level.
Can I say like a 0 or 1 or 2?
I mean, you can. Oh, sure.
Yeah.
If you're the Jalen Hurts owner, your concern is not with Minshew. Your concern is
Minshew.
with the likes of
Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson.
Yes.
My concern is not they're not going to start Minshew over Jalen Hurts. Like if you ask about concerns of the Jalen Hurts owner, your fear is, hey, they have 3 first-round picks, and Wilson and Deshaun Watson might be on the trade market.
And
that
Aaron
should be your Rodgers. I don't think they'd go for kind of the older quarterback because they still need to build some parts of their roster. But I mean, if Rodgers became available, I don't know if anyone's saying no. But yeah, that's the concern for Jalen Hurts owners. They're not going to be high enough to pick Matt Corral. It's a relatively weak quarterback class. If it was like last year's class, it'd be a whole different factor. But
quarterbacks this class are getting underrated.
Yeah, but what about Minshew though? What do we if you have
I think he should be a starter.
Looking for a cheap
I agree.
quarterback?
He's a top 32 quarterback in the NFL currently.
What's his value though? Is he a second round pick now?
I'm not giving up a second.
What
I don't think you need to. I don't think you need to give up a second round pick for Gardner Minshew right now. I think a lot of people are down on him since he got just completely thrown away by the Jaguars and then signed a deal to be the backup quarterback in Philly. I mean, he played really good this Sunday, albeit it was against the Jets. So don't want to read too much into that. But he's shown in the NFL that he can be a productive quarterback. Now, he might not be the most showy quarterback. He's not going to go out there and throw for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns like the likes of Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, all those guys. But he's a guy that can win you games. He's a tough guy. He puts his body on the line, and he manages the game well. He will not lose you the game, which is a thing that I think a lot of teams would take rather than who they have right now.
Yeah, right now Minshew is still super low on keep trade cut. He's at about 1,000 value. So you're right. He'd be around the 3rd round pick category. I feel like if I had Minshew, I'm not going to sell him for a 3rd. Like right now, the upside is just kind of worth it. Because to me, and I saw reports of this on Twitter, apparently like teams are now thinking about Minshew as a potential trade opportunity. And I could easily see that happening in the offseason after kind of the quarterback carousel happens with whatever happens with Deshaun Watson, Rodgers, all the guys that we just mentioned. If there's a team that gets boned, and we're going to go over some of the teams that are going to be looking at quarterbacks, well, all of a sudden, a team might be choosing between Minshew or a Jimmy Garoppolo or something. And if you're a team like Lounis was saying, where you're looking for more of a franchise quarterback than a bridge quarterback or like a rental kind of quarterback, maybe you say fuck it and throw a 3rd round pick or a 4th round pick, whatever it costs in the NFL draft for a Minshew.
What the Jags sold him for was ridiculous. I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, the Eagles got more for Joe Flacco than the Jags did for Minshew.
They did.
Yeah.
They did.
Which is I don't know why the Jags sold him that low. Like, I know you're going to start Lawrence, obviously.
Probably to avoid quarterback controversy.
Still, they sold him for what, a 6th?
Yeah, but there's a lot more stuff that goes on behind the scenes too, though, because Minshew was probably just wanted out for his career as well. Like, I mean, T-Law's there. There's no potential. So he probably went to the organizations like, dude, trade me. And then what are you going to do? Keep a guy hostage looking for like a 5th round pick instead of a 6th?
I guess. Would you guys rather have Minshew or Trubisky in Dynasty?
That's a good question because I think they're kind of in similar positions. I
think Mitch's upside is higher. Mitch has a higher upside, but I do think that a team that is looking for a bridge quarterback would rather play Gardner Minshew because he's a safer option. He's not going to turn the ball over as many times as Mitch might.
I actually fully agree with Jake there. I think Mitch has the higher ceiling, but I think a team will feel more comfortable with Minshew.
In Dynasty, I just think Mitch is stuck in Buffalo. He's because the Buffaloes knows the value of a backup quarterback. They're just going to hold on to Mitch, whereas Gardner Minshew could end up anywhere, and that kind of unknown, I think, kind of propels Minshew to me.
Here's the one thing I'll say about Minshew is that, and we need to see more games probably before I can make a full opinion. But the big problem that I had with Minshew in Jacksonville was too much off schedule stuff for a guy that doesn't have that upper tier talent, right? He had that. This is going to sound crazy, but bear with me. That kind of like Mahomes-esque play style in terms of just holding on to the ball, rolling out, trying to, and Mahomes is athletic and he's got a fucking cannon, so he can kind of get away with it. Minshew, on the other hand, when he does that, he's not going to get away with it as much.
So we're putting him.
Scenarios.
You're putting him somewhere between Ben DiNucci and Patrick Mahomes.
Well, no, like just that sort of play style where but it's too off schedule. You know, he needs to dial it back where he can still, like, Tony Romo was a guy that was able to do off schedule stuff, but he didn't live in it. He didn't live in that world.
My point is, how much of that off schedule stuff was Minshew versus the Jags offensive line was garbage. His receivers weren't open. Whole product.
You look at that Eagles game the other day. I mean, he looks like he knows the playbook inside and out. I mean, he's getting the now. I will give some credit where credit is due. The Jets defense wasn't making it very hard on him. CJ Mosley does not look like an NFL linebacker anymore in pass coverage. Dallas Goedert had years of space.
Goddard just torched them.
He was wide open on both the touchdowns.
And
especially
he looked like he really trusted his arm. I mean, fact of the matter is, like, you could have bought Minshew for low, and I have Minshew. I'm not looking to sell him for anything aside from a very, very early third or a very, very late second. I think I'd rather just keep him for upside and see if, because the minute that he gets traded to a potential starting job, you can get a second round pick for him.
Yeah.
All right.
1,000%.
Moving on, we have Joe Brady was surprisingly out of nowhere kind of fired as the Panthers head coach. Matt Rule apparently wanted to run the ball more, is what I think Schefter and Rappaport were tweeting out. Something along the lines of they won the Panthers. They thought their recipe for success was about 30-something runs per game. They only averaged like 18 runs since they wanted to switch their game plan. So
what do you expect when you hire Joe Brady, who's coming off the LSU team that has Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and Burrow, and you go to a team that has Christian McCaffrey? I don't know what I don't know what they expected here.
Yeah, well, clearly they expected different because now
apparently more rush attempts.
Yeah, I mean, look, we discussed this.
I was going to say he's given two terrible quarterbacks in PJ Walker, and then McCaffrey, who's the entire offense. Like, their offense looked noticeably different when he's in versus, like, you look at what games did he mostly play? There's 3 games of the season and that Arizona game in the middle of the year. And I guess that Washington game where they didn't look that bad against Washington, even though they lost. Like, what are you really supposed to do with the rest of the offense? Like, Robbie Anderson's disappointed this year. Terrace Marshall isn't quite ready yet. Like, you really only had DJ Moore healthy.
Yeah. We talked about this, like, just as a side, as a group before. And, like, I was struggling internally with whether, like, Matt Rule was, like, smart and realized that Sam Darnold, you know, he never won. Sam Darnold, he was pushing for Deshaun or Mac Jones, and he realized that Sam Darnold's not that good, and he thought he should run the ball. Or Matt Rule is one of those guys who, you know, he sees, like, teams that run the ball more, and like you know, when you see those Cowboys stats when Zeke Elliott runs the ball 25 times, they win like 75% of the time, but it's actually just because the Cowboys are running out the clock in the third and fourth quarter. Like, I couldn't tell if Matt Rule was the guy that thought more runs equals more wins, or my quarterback sucks. So let me run the ball more.
How are you gonna diss the more runs equals more wins agenda with the Patriots posted behind you?
All right, well.
Well, he's got you there, JT.
I mean, if we, in the side note, I don't understand how the Bills didn't know that the run was coming every single play. It just couldn't do anything. But that's a
different story.
Yeah, different track. So to me, I don't know. I just think I want to give Rule the benefit of the doubt and just like Sam Darnold's not good. Like, let's just run the ball because we can't throw the ball. I don't know. To me, it's weird. I don't know what direction the Panthers are taking, and I don't know what Joe Brady's going to do. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
I feel like Matt Rule's.
Go
ahead, Jake. Oh, okay. I was gonna say I feel like Matt Rule's been a pretty solid head coach for them for the past 2 seasons. Like I feel like he got the best out of Bridgewater. Attempted to get the best out of Darnold. That didn't really go well. I'm gonna say that's like probably the Darnold thing, and then I texted it to you, but I think probably Rule's the one who wanted to make a move for Watson. And just I don't know the input on Joe Brady and those quarterback decisions we won't really ever know, but unless it like leaks or something. But I'm gonna guess it's probably the other thing you suggested, where he's like, our quarterbacks are ass, like we should be running the ball majority of the time.
The decision that I just think at the end of the day, this whole front office just messed up completely was you had pick 8. You had Justin Fields and Mac Jones sitting in your face, and you took a cornerback. I understand J.C. Horn has been good. And no knocks on J.C. Horn here. But, like, you had 2 guys that, both were considered good quarterback prospects. You needed a quarterback, and instead you said, we're going to take the guy from the Jets.
I agree. Like, passing on, I would have really liked to see Fields on that offense. Or even Mac Jones. I think either of them would have succeeded on that offense.
I mean, Fields is interesting because you could run a triple option if you wanted to with McCaffrey, and that would be dangerous. And even Mac Jones, I think Mac Jones and Joe Brady would have made a good pairing as well. So, never know.
All right. Let's move on then. T. Higgins, he's back. He's been out targeting Jamar Chase. They have pretty similar points, though, just because of the nature of what passes they're getting and everything. But T. Higgins is back. People were writing him off for who knows what reason. He's getting replaced by Jamar. He's not as good. I don't know. I mean, I think it's more of there's like a very small amount of people that were really doing that. And then there's a very loud Twitter group that just kept defending T. Higgins. But it's kind of that straw man thing where no one was really that anti T. Higgins. But nonetheless, T. Higgins, he dipped to like, I want to say like wide receiver 20, 18 was his lowest. I could pull it up on Keep Trade Cut to say it exactly. But he dipped for a little bit. And now after his most recent games, he's back up to now currently on Keep Trade Cut. He's wide receiver 17. Let's track his value. He was originally, before the start of the season, he was all the way up at wide receiver like 11 at his peak. And then at his lowest, he was wide receiver 25 just a few weeks ago. Now he's bounced back to wide receiver 16 currently. So he's back. I don't know. I don't think there are many people that were trading T. Higgins. I just don't think, it was ever the right move to do. What are you going to say?
I was going to say, if you feel sad about not being able to buy low on T. Higgins because their owners didn't do it, there's another receiver that's extremely similar to me. Chase Claypool is the one who I think is going to be kind of like a similar like resurrection and like, oh yeah, I forgot he's that good as a rookie. And you could probably buy low on him now. I think some owners are starting to get pessimistic.
He's currently wide receiver 24 on Keep Trade Cut. Right next to Rashod Bateman and Marquise Brown.
I mean, I agree with what you were saying, JT, about the strawman argument. Dude, if you didn't like T. Higgins, you were selling him this offseason when when you knew you could cash in at a good price to me. If you panicked on T. Higgins, and because I mean, it's not like the volume wasn't there. He was getting the targets. It wasn't working. And that's just the thing with receivers. Like you'll see guys go in slumps. Shit happens. It's a wonky position where a lot of your points will come from just a handful of plays. In general, kind of like what you were just saying, Lounis, how Chase Claypool's a buy. I feel like a lot of the receivers in that range, whether it's Cortland Sutton, Chase Claypool, T. Higgins, if you're able to pick up any one of those dudes low or do the classic trade where you're going from one of the more hyped receivers, let's just say DJ Moore, for example, when he was at that top 5 valuation, we were saying, hey, if you can go from DJ Moore to T. Higgins in a first, well, I'm gonna do that just because I think the talent level is very similar, and the first round pick makes up too much of that difference, right? Unless you really think that receiver's an insanely stud level receiver, I think that moving down from those guys is the move. And yeah, T. Higgins is back. That's a good offense. That T. Higgins should be a good player.
I offered Jake that exact trade in our league. He did not accept it.
He did offer me that exact trade.
Yeah, I almost got it. Didn't get. But yeah,
made me think for a second. Made me think.
Yeah, at the time it was definitely a compelling thing because T. Higgins wasn't producing and DJ Moore was getting like 20 receptions a game. Now it's very different. But speaking of wide receiver talk, why don't we just move on to what I think we're going to agree on here, the undisputed wide receiver one. That's not Jamar Jefferson, Justin Jefferson. Yeah. Justin Jefferson had another great week with Adam Thielen getting hurt in like the first half. He is like just leagues above Jamar Chase currently on Keep Trade Cut. He's ranked at a value of 9,556, while Chase is at 8,214. There's about So that's 1,300 points separating those two, and then Chase is only 600 points above CD Lamb. So there's a big
Wait, did you say Lamb was wide receiver 2?
Lamb was wide receiver 3. Lamb's 600 points behind Chase, but Chase is 1,300 points behind Jefferson. Jefferson is far and away wide receiver 1. And I think as a pod, we're going to agree, rightfully so, right? Like, no one disagrees with that, right?
I agree Jefferson should be wide receiver 1. What's the difference? What's 1,300 like in a draft pick?
Well, all right.
It's
a draft
different. Pick, it's around a
well, actually, no. I shouldn't really say that because that hypothetical trade, anyone who owns Jamar Chase isn't giving a legit asset to get Justin Jefferson.
To move Chase to Jefferson, you'd have to give up the likes of, Keenan Allen, Elijah Mitchell, Jerry Jeudy, Aaron Jones. That's where I think T-Trade cut
anyone. Anyone who owns Jamar Chase. I think Jamar Chase is a close wide receiver too. Obviously he's a star. He slowed down a little bit. I'm sure defenses are just focusing on him more now, but I actually think the T. Higgins resurgence is going to help him a bit. Get like defenses to not focus on Chase so much. But I mean, Jefferson, like, what can you say? He's insane. You could argue he's, in terms of current, besides just dynasty wide receiver 1, like if we're talking like modern, like right now, top wide receivers, probably you will in your top 3, top 5. Like currently in the NFL, you have like him, Devontae Adams, maybe Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp. Like he's up there in that discussion with those guys, and he's 23, 24 years old.
22.
Yeah.
He's insane. Well, it's funny because I remember at the very, very beginning of the offseason, I was kind of in the camp along with, I feel like consensus was kind of like this because of what's happened to the wide receiver 1 coming into the season, the fact that it's been a very unstable spot. It's like the master of the dark arts teacher in Hogwarts, it changed every year. From
D-Hop, Michael Thomas.
It did. It was not a comfortable spot.
No, but I'm just saying we're going Narcos Jr. Now we got Harry Potter. Yeah. We had the one episode.
This is the fucking pod.
It was like Michael Thomas a couple years ago, then D-Hop, then Devontae Adams.
Even go back, Odell Beckham. Remember, like after his rookie season, he was untouchable almost. He was the 101, not even just the wide receiver.
I think what we got to talk about though is Justin Jefferson versus non-wide receivers, right? Like, are you trading, Justin Herbert for Jamar Jefferson?
Justin Jefferson.
Yeah,
because I was about to tell you there's not a single running back I'd trade Justin Jefferson for. One for one.
Jonathan Taylor?
I'd keep Jefferson.
Wow.
I see.
I love Jonathan
I disagree
Taylor.
Because if I up until this point, aside from that one part of the offseason, which I went back, I watched some of the Vikings games. It was like, okay, yeah, this guy's a stud muffin. Like, not trading him. at that wide receiver 1 price. The thing is now is that he's no longer just the wide receiver 1. Like JT was saying, he is approaching 101, which at that price, I think I would start to see if I could just get one of those ridiculous offers. I do think that
he's quarterback 4, he's running back 2, he's tight end 1, he's
especially like, dude, if you're in a league where, you know, it's a super flex league, you're starting a lot of players and all that. Obviously, I'm not just going to sell him just to sell him, but if you can get the real, you know, the real chonker of an offer,
yeah,
which we're starting to really approach, like, dude, we're talking over 3 firsts kind of a value, which you're starting to get
that.
Yeah, you're starting to get in the conversation of should anyone aside from like the Patrick Mahomeses even be valued that highly, kind of price.
Like 1-for-1, it's gonna be hard to make a trade for him. Taylor, like I said, no, Taylor is really fucking close between Jefferson and Taylor. I just immediately said Jefferson because I'm like, Jefferson's gonna be in the NFL in his prime for a few years longer than Taylor, and we're talking dynasty. Like,
I mean, that's just receiver. That's just the position.
Yeah, exactly. Which is what game. But it's tough between them two. But like, there's only a handful of quarterbacks that you would take over. Like, how many quarterbacks are you taking over Justin Jefferson? You got
Keep Trade Cut has 3. Keep Trade Cut's got Mahomes, Kyler, and Josh Allen.
I still think there's about 6 quarterbacks I'd take.
Herbert.
I think for mine there's 5. I'm throwing on Herbert and Lamar Jackson, but then I think that's it.
I still think Dak Prescott. I know Dak Prescott hasn't been playing extremely well.
All right,
so
Frank. Let me.
I think
based on Keep Trade Cut, let me throw trades at you because it's not just Dak Prescott that would be a fair trade according to Keep Trade Cut. It'd be Justin Jefferson. I mean, it'd be Dak Prescott. Yeah, this is nuts on Keep Trade Cut. But according to Keep Trade Cut, you'd have to throw on either Dalvin Cook, Stephon Diggs, a 2023 early first, Antonio Gibson, or Joe Mixon on top of Dak Prescott to get Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, so here's just the problem with the receivers is that Justin Jefferson's great. If you need in terms of cornerstone pieces to build your dynasty team around, he's obviously near the top. But I would rather have these sick quarterbacks, and I'd rather have freaking what's his name, Jonathan Taylor, just because, dude, it's really hard to get like kind of one of those kludge fixes at a quarterback and a running back spot. It doesn't really happen. At a wide receiver, dude, I can pick up Hunter Renfrow. I can pick up these random receivers and I could get an army of them. I mean, Tyler Lockett's, Adam Thielen's, like there's so many producing receivers that you can pick up that will not produce at the Justin Jefferson level. But, dude, he's only going to be, 50 points behind? Jonathan Taylor, compared to your kludge fix running back, is going to be over 100 points behind. Same thing with the quarterback, usually. 100-point difference.
That's just the nature of the position, though. Receivers last longer, but there's also 3 of them per team on the field at once when there's only 1 running back on the field at once. And you can always find those like cheap targets. The cheap targets, you can always find them, and they're always not very expensive, and you could always build a receiving core or at least, a back-end receiving core for them.
I don't know what you're laughing about. I missed something.
There's cheap targets, they're not very expensive. I don't know why I found that hilarious.
All right. Look, I got a question for you guys. It's a little out of left field, but we'll get to it. Like, what do you think Joe Mixon would be in a startup draft right now?
Apparently a first-round pick, but I wouldn't take him there.
In a startup, super flex startup, he's not first-round pick. Like third?
No, I mean, he's like overall asset like 15 right now, I think. Or no, he's fallen a little bit, but he's probably a second-round pick.
All right, let's say mid-second. Let's say he's like 206, right? But for my purposes, yeah, I guess. All right, we'll say 203, 204. According to Keep Trade Cut, you would have to in a startup to get to like 104. You'd have to give up about 110 and 203, 204 to get to 104. Is that is that a trade that would actually happen in a startup?
No.
You need a later.
It'd be a lot cheaper, I think.
Yeah, I just don't think people are giving up that much but I mean, in the terms of Keep Trade Cut world, like that's what you'd have to give up to get, Justin Jefferson if you had Dak Prescott, which is kind of crazy. Like I'd do that. And I really like Justin Jefferson.
Well, I also think, just last point before we move on, I just think that some of these quarterbacks are a little bit underpriced. I think partly because people don't realize they're in super flex mode when they're making some of these decisions. I personally feel like that is a problem because you look at quarterbacks across the board, aside from the top three, I feel like all of them are slightly undervalued, except
agree.
for the ones with massive hype behind them.
Yeah.
I just think so. I'm looking now. I just think like the drop off from Lamar to Dak is even crazy. It's Lamar's at 8,700 points, Dak's at 7,500 points. That's the difference of an Amari Cooper or a James Robinson on
Yeah,
top.
that's the recency bias kind of hitting you because Dak
Yeah,
Prescott
which-
hasn't had some great. I mean, and partly it's because the running backs have been getting touchdowns. I mean, the past couple of weeks, Tony Pollard, I think, has scored a touchdown. Zeke has almost scored a touchdown every game.
Yeah.
So, like, whether you want to call it regression, non-luck, whatever, Dak is a league-winning level quarterback, I still believe, and he has proven it in seasons past. I'm not going to just feels like a lot of recency. Come the offseason, once things kind of like slow down in terms of all the craziness, I think that you'll see it go back to normal a little bit. But yeah, I think all in all on the Justin Jefferson thing, I would look to sell at a ridiculous price just because I don't think a receiver should be worth this much.
Yeah, same.
Even
Right.
though he's a fucking beast.
So we touched on this player a little bit, like for a brief second when I was talking about what to move Dak Prescott plus for. Antonio Gibson, he's up to running back 10 on Keep Trade Cut. Back up from I can track what he did for people that are listening. Antonio Gibson went from he's currently running back 10, and he was at his low point. He appeared to be about running back 16, 17. At his high point before the season started, he was running back 5. So he's kind of, middled out there.
I think he just finally looks healthy now.
That could be
think
it.
He's weird, man. I'm very on and off
It
with
could
him.
just be that.
Because
mean,
the
they're
thing
giving
that's
him
really
touches.
encouraging, real quick, the thing that's really encouraging with him is that we're seeing the volume of a true RB1, but at the same time, I don't think he passes the eye test. When you watch these Washington football team games, I mean, you look at all the running backs ahead of him. Outside of like, at least, and even I think Joe Mixon passes the eye test a little bit more than Gibson. It's like, dude, are we really gonna go back to his preseason value? Because I understand his preseason high was RB5. I think for most of the offseason, he was around RB8, RB9. And if you were to make a
was really
trade,
high.
that was the price that he was generally going for. Have we seen enough recently to warrant that top 10, that fringe top 10 price?
So for me, I think talent wise, and actually for me, the eye test it warrants it. Not as high as like 7 or something, but somewhere like in that like maybe like 9 or 10 or 11, 12 range, like somewhere there, like a lower end RB1, I value him as. My only concern actually isn't from what I've seen. My only concern is his 2 best weeks have come with McKissick being out. I think that's played a factor in some of his receiving game touches. And so it's something that you hope can continue. But you don't know. Like for some reason they've just had a fetish for McKissick. And I don't know how they're going to use him, but Curtis Samuel still has yet to play like over 30% of snaps in a game. I don't know if they want to use him in some of those shorter McKissick routes. Because Ron Rivera used him in the backfield a lot in Carolina too. So that's the only thing that gets me hesitant, because what's been raising his value a lot is like they're using him in the receiving game way more.
The running backs ranked around him right now, on Keep Trade Cut, the 3 above Antonio Gibson are you got Nick Chubb, Alvin Kamara, Joe Mixon, and then the 3 below him are Dalvin Cook, Saquon, and Derrick Henry.
Okay, I'll ask
that's
you a
the round
question.
reason.
Quick question though.
That answers the question. That answers the question right there.
Quick question to all three of you. Are you guys taking Dobbins or Gibson?
Dobbins is the 4th one below him. Dobbins or Gibson?
Would you guys rather have Dobbins or Gibson entering next season?
Dobbins.
Yeah, I think Dobbins.
It's close for me. I really fucking like Dobbins. I rank Dobbins higher than Keep Trade Cut has him currently.
Yeah, I mean, I think before Dobbins got injured and like before the start of the season, I think I had Dobbins over Antonio Gibson. And while Antonio Gibson has looked good the past couple weeks, I mean, his season as a whole hasn't been great. And
Yeah, what I will say, they're both in my top 12 dynasty backs, but I have Dobbins slightly ahead.
I would be comfortable holding either of them. The one thing that concerns me about Dobbins, though, I know we're changing up the subject here, or at least I am actually. I'm a little bit concerned that consensus just believes that Dobbins is going to come back and be a 25 touch a game kind of a back. And while I do think that's what's going to happen, that's the price right now for a guy that kind of hasn't really shown that ever. Even when he was a rookie, so like you're projecting a little bit of an uptick in volume, but Antonio Gibson, we have seen that recently now. We have seen the guy that's getting 20 plus touches a game, whether it's McKissick being out or whatever the fuck, coming back off injury, he's been getting that. So it's a little bit of for me, like what the projection versus what we've seen, upside versus we've seen it. So it's a little wonky.
That's
I
fair.
still think I'd lean Dobbins, but
That's a fair point. Very fair point.
I'm so back and forth on Gibson. I can't really get. And I think partly
you should just let me take him off your hands. You don't have to be so back and forth about him.
Well, I think part of the issue for me is that he's just such a different player than he was coming out.
Yeah, drastically different.
So it's
like he looks like a completely different player.
Especially for someone like me, where my draft evaluation doesn't just kind of disappear unless a Gibson scenario happens where the player is just completely different and used in a completely different role. So I would love to sell him on the hype, but at the same time, it's not like he's getting ridiculous hype.
Yeah. I tweeted about Gibson before the season started, where Swift is someone that I'm all the way in on. The 2020 running back that I can't make my mind up about is Gibson. And to this day, we are now 5 months later than when I tweeted that. I still can't make my mind up on Gibson. I don't know. To me, he's someone that if I could pivot off Gibson to a running back I'm more comfortable with, I probably would. And with what I was saying, like a Nick Chubb, I think I'd probably do that. Joe Mixon, I'd probably do. I get that they're roughly 2 years older, but Gibson's one that he could have in his realm of realms. He could be CMC, but he can also be a freaking Nyheim Hines. He's all over the board with what his potential outcomes could be.
Realistically speaking as well, let's just go into this scenario. If the Browns draft a running back, Nick Chubb's value maybe takes a small hit, but then not really, right?
It shouldn't. Nick Chubb. Well, no. If anything, I think it helps because if they draft a running back, that means they're probably letting Kareem Hunt walk in free agency, and said rookie running back probably is not going to be better than Kareem Hunt.
If the Washington football team drafts a running back, all hell breaks loose.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Especially if they take one in the first 2 rounds.
So, Antonio Gibson's value is somewhat built upon a house of cards, it feels like. Which, I don't know, it could be a good thing in terms of, if he does continue this output, the dude's going to be valued as a top 5 back. But is that going to be, I don't know. I have no fucking idea, to be honest. So, your best guess is as good as mine. As of right now, I'm kind of just holding. I don't know what the fuck to do.
I think hold might be, unless you could pivot, like I said, to one of those more comfortable ones. I think holding is the only thing you should do too. All right. Speaking of running backs that kind of had a house of cards value and then it came to the floor and then got rebuilt, we're talking James Robinson. He was running back I could look at him real quick actually. James Robinson is currently running back 26 after he just got benched for 20 snaps for fumbling the ball. James Robinson, does it bring us to May? Yeah. James Robinson was all the way up at running back 12 before the draft happened. Then at his low point, he hit running back 31. Then Etienne got hurt and he went all the way back up to running back 18. And now he's back down to running back 26 because he was been battling injuries. He fumbled. Urban Meyer's a mess. This Jaguars offense is a mess. And so now James Robinson is falling down again, back in a free fall. What are we doing, guys?
He's a tough one because when he plays the majority of snaps, he looks good. He looks like a very good
Yeah.
running back. But I just have this gut feeling that Urban Meyer doesn't want him. He never did. He clearly didn't when he drafted Travis Etienne to be the running back. Obviously, they were going to split time, and that was probably the plan from the start. But I don't know.
Look,
It just seems like he's unwanted in Jacksonville. Now, if he were to leave and go somewhere else, it might be different. But then again, running backs leaving usually doesn't end very well.
well, I will say this in terms of his outlook and like what his dynasty value can do. I mean, two teams that really should be going out and trying to get running backs are the Buffalo Bills and Miami Dolphins. And are you really going to go and spend the high draft capital on the likes of an Isaiah Spiller, Brees Hall, when you could probably trade for James Robinson for less? I mean, you just said, Jake, it does seem like the Jaguars, like he wasn't really in their long-term plans. He was an undrafted free agent that they can sell for an actual draft pick. I don't know. I think those are two big teams that could potentially trade for him. The Falcons, there are a few teams that could use just that kind of workhorse running back that James Robinson is. I don't know. It's hard with speculation though. You expect NFL teams to do stuff, and then most of the time they just don't.
Yeah.
It really is hard to get a beat on James Robinson because, I don't think he's, people had compared him to like Philip Lindsay, especially in this offseason where, oh, he's just a 1-year wonder. Clearly he's not because he's had games that's very productive. So now the next hurdle is, are you better than an Alfred Morris, right? Because Alfred Morris, another dude, late round draft pick, obviously not undrafted, but had some really good years. I mean, like the first 2 or 3 years of his career, he was phenomenal. But then kind of just lost all relevancy for whatever reason. Is James Robinson anything more than that? If you can get him at an RB26 price, I think I'd buy my ticket to the roller coaster, get my fast pass onto this bitch. But if you can't get him at that RB26 price, I think I'm just going to watch from the sidelines. Like I have James Robinson in a league. I've just been firm holding him because I don't know what the hell to do with him. And I don't think anyone's willing to give me that price that's worth it to get off the roller coaster. But if I can get on for cheap, man, we've seen this thing go back up. So fuck it, James Robinson to the moon, baby.
I'm sorry, I couldn't get you past you buying your fast pass for the James Robinson.
Frank's with the analogies.
Yeah.
Well, what's the price that it takes to get James Robinson?
Well,
Are they second round pick right now?
According to Keep Trade Cut, that's why I assume. Well, he's around Leonard Fournette, and I was looking up Leonard Fournette a couple days ago just to see what he was worth because I remember we were talking with Jake like a couple months ago, and the person in our league who had Leonard Fournette wanted a late first for him, and I think that's what Leonard Fournette's worth right now. And yeah, 2022 late first is like basically equal with what James Robinson is currently.
Man, the thing that's really scary though is that running back does seem very much like a position where you just need your coach to believe in you. And
yeah,
there's another guy I'm just back and forth on. If you can get in for cheap, I think it's worth the upside. But other than that, stay away. Because like, dude, I'm looking. We have a segment that I'm not sure we're going to be able to reach because of time, but we're looking at these running back landing spots. I mean, there's a handful of teams that need running backs, but dude, if James Robinson was a receiver, I would be much more in the James Robinson. Let's go ahead because like half the teams in the NFL need a receiver. Yeah. Dude, it feels like not a ton of teams really need running backs. And how many of these teams are going to be like, yeah, instead of going and trading assets for James Robinson and then we're going to have to pay him shortly, like, no, they would just draft their own dude in the 3rd round or the 2nd round.
Do you think James Robinson would command a high asking price or contract?
I think the problem is that if you trade for him, like he has that little bit of leverage, especially if he's getting that workhorse kind of low.
I guess. Yeah, I don't know what his price would be on the open market, like what his signing contract would be.
It just stinks if you have him because the sell window for that 1st round pick is gone. He's back to his off season. The concerns are just front and center.
His unless he has a crazy last few weeks, which like seeing what Jacksonville's currently doing, I doubt it. His value is just going to keep dropping until we get to next year, basically, because you're going to have the draft, you're going to have the off season, you're going to have everything, and then Yeah. So to me, I think we're just going to see James Robinson only go down from here currently. All right, moving on. We do have like 2 injuries. It was a very quiet week in terms of injuries. Adam Thielen got knocked out. I kind of mentioned him when we were talking about Justin Jefferson. He got knocked out of the first half with an ankle injury. He'll probably be out this game too. Yeah, Jake has him.
Of course he did.
He'll probably be out this week too because it's a Thursday night game against Frank's Steelers. So I doubt he'll be available for that. I don't know. To me, it's just an ankle injury. I don't think that's really. It's just an annoyance the week before the playoffs start that he's going to be out. But I don't think he's going to be a long-term injury.
Yeah, it should be like a 2 to 3 week injury, something like that. It's a high ankle sprain. He's pretty much certain to miss this week's game on Thursday since it's a short week for them. But other than that, it's more of an annoyance than a long-term issue for Adam Thielen.
Yeah, those were good things. Look, good thing I said those.
Any relevance with a guy like what's his name?
Osborne?
Yeah,
Osborne, tight end here.
What happened with Irv Smith, Jake? Is Irv Smith just still hurt?
Yeah, he was on IR before the season, so he was
but
out
I thought
for the year.
it was before the season. Okay.
If you put him on IR before the season, he can't be.
To me, I thought it was like a 6-week injury or something, and then he just like.
That's what the initial report was, but then he got surgery on it, and that ended the season.
Edward Newton said that James Robinson still takes at least late first, early second in his league for J-Rob. See, I don't think I'm getting in at that price. I think I'd rather just hold the draft pick.
I'm not giving a first for
because that's
Robinson.
Not like early second. That's very subjective, right? If it's like a 204, 205, okay, yeah, I might buy my ticket, but fuck 201, 202. There's going to be some juicy receivers on the board at that pick.
Yeah.
I'm thinking. I don't know. Maybe that's not super flex though. Maybe that's standard. So I have no idea.
That's a good point.
Years now.
Yeah, it depends what your league is.
I think I don't know. It depends on when people have trade deadlines and everything. I think you probably could have gotten a late first for James Robinson just past couple weeks. I just think when we're going into the offseason and everything, there's only going to be negatives for James Robinson. Like, unless he ends up getting traded to one of these teams, which it's so hard to predict. NFL
his stock's
teams
just
going
to go down when like reports come out like, oh, Etienne practicing again.
But the thing is too, though, how many running backs with low ass draft capital have had success switching teams?
I can't think of any off the top of my head.
That's the thing that scares me. Is like, okay, yeah, if you're a Fournette, like, okay, dude, the guy was like a top 10 fucking pick. Like, if anyone's going to turn it around, it's going to be that motherfucker. You know, like Saquon Barkley. If anyone's going to turn it around, yeah, I'll take the dude that was literally a top 10 draft pick. He's going to have a bunch of people and a bunch of GMs thinking like, because, dude, they were in the league at the time he was drafted. They were probably licking their chops thinking like, oh, imagine if I had this guy and whatnot. And they have the talent. Like, there's a reason they went that high.
For every Aaron Jones, there's a million Philip Lindsays. Just how I phrase it with the late round running backs.
Like, I just think that if you're in the camp of hoping, oh, he switches teams and has success, not that it can't happen. I'm not buying for that, though. That's a situation that I'm not buying and spending good draft capital in hopes for.
So, basically, after a brief Google search, the only one I could find is Priest Holmes. It was on the Ravens and then ended up on the Chiefs.
Okay.
Went crazy, but yeah.
Maybe he is the outlier. I don't know. This weird situation. That's a tough one.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. Miles Sanders, ankle injury again.
I followed that. He said after the game they just didn't bring him back in because they were up 21. He said he's going to be fine for when he comes back.
To me, again, it just seemed like I don't know. This week was just a quiet week.
There was no really. Yeah.
I mean, I'll tell you what. Gainwell looked all right when he filled in. Is there any?
I still like Gainwell long term, but I can tell you the reason he was getting those touches is because Jordan Howard was out, and Jordan Howard's expected to be back after the bye. I think next year will be the year they really start using Gainwell a ton. But right now it's Sanders and Howard's backfield, and they're both going to be healthy. They have a bye this week, but then after the bye. But I do still like Gainwell in the long term. He's showing a lot on the receiving game. He caught a couple passes on Sunday. He had the nice touchdown run. I still think he's a good change of pace back. I was surprised they didn't really use him over the past couple weeks and instead used Boston Scott and Jordan Howard. But I'm guessing it's just something they're seeing on their end. But I still like Gainwell, even though kind of right now he's a little bit buried.
Right, but I guess that's my concern with Gainwell is like you said, he could be a nice change of pace back, but in terms of fantasy, you're not looking for a real change of pace back most times. That's not going to be a consistent fantasy production. Do you think he ever, breaks through and is the 1A in the offense, even if there's a 1B behind him where he's getting the
1A?
majority of the touches, or even if he's just an equal split where he's not the change of pace back and like it's a Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb situation kind of thing going on. Like, is there any?
You can I think the ceiling is Kareem Hunt. I think your hope for if you're a Gainwell owner is that Miles Sanders leaves and not this offseason, next offseason in free agency. Because as a pure runner, they prefer Sanders heavily. They mostly bring in Gainwell on those receiving downs, which is where I say Hunt can kind of be the ceiling. I see him next year kind of almost being a McKissick role between Sanders and Gainwell, kind of being like an Antonio Gibson McKissick type thing. That'd be my guess. I think he'll be well ahead of Howard and Boston Scott. I don't even
You
know
want to know
those
the
guys are gonna be on
thing that I find annoying about Kenny Gainwell is that I was hoping, especially because we've seen this role becoming like a lot more meta in the league right now, is I was hoping that he would steal some receiver snaps and get lined up in the slot a little bit. And then all of a sudden you see a workload where
that would change a lot.
Yeah, that all of a sudden would be, I mean, everyone's going to point to Deebo Samuel as that dude. Not saying that he would be a Deebo Samuel level player, but a guy that could get you, okay, when Miles Sanders is on the field, freaking Gainwell's in the slot a couple of snaps. And instead of just going with two tight end sets like the Eagles would used to do a lot with Ertz and Goddard, all of a sudden they're going with a little bit of a hybrid package with 12 personnel, with two running backs and one tight end. That's what I think I was hoping for with Gainwell that we have not seen. That being said, he's jumped Boston Scott. It looks like Boston Scott didn't play it down. Was he out or
he was active?
He was active. I think he jumped Scott.
I think he was sick this week, and
he barely practiced. I think Gainwell jumped Scott. Scott didn't have a good performance the week before.
This has no evidence. I have nothing to back this up. But I prefer when it's a wide receiver moves to running back rather than running back moves to wide receiver, like a Deebo Samuel, Cordero Patterson, even Antonio Gibson. I know he did in college where he moved from wide receiver to running back. I don't know why, but to me, I think they make the transition.
Wait, which way did you say you prefer?
Demetric Felton went running back to receiver, but he hasn't really played.
Yeah, I like wide receiver starting to running back is like so Deebo's still wide receiver, but like he's productive in the backfield kind of thing. But like you know what I'm saying, like Cordell Patterson, he's kind of.
I mean, I think Visca was a running back way back when, like in high school, but I'm not sure that counts.
I have nothing to back it up. That's just my preference.
Which I'm not sure that's a good point.
Kadarius Toney was a running back that's a receiver, but I mean, you kind of see it when he gets the ball.
Yeah, but Kadarius Toney was a quarterback too, though, right? He was an everything.
He was just an athlete.
Yeah, Kadarius Toney in the Wildcat look seems fucking terrifying.
Actually, speaking of, Kenny Gainwell was a quarterback in high school. Little known fact.
Kenneth Gainwell.
I feel like most, like if you're just athletic in high school, you're probably a quarterback. All right, let's get into our next segment, maybe our last segment depending on time. The panic meter, rookie edition.
Oh my goodness, the panic meter.
Yeah, I'm just gonna kick it off with the guys that I hyped up at the beginning of the season.
Do we want to do like just like we all just say a 1 through 10 scale, then we can go kind of.
Yeah, okay. So Terrace Marshall, 5.
Start with you, JT.
I mean, I have 5. Like, we talked about him before on our hits and misses. I just think it's a weird year to have. The issue with all these guys, to go on a little side tangent, is
no, you're good. You on
it's going to be like what someone we've referenced before on this podcast, DF Bean Counter on Twitter talks about with the face planters, where it's like Terrace Marshall was drafted, relatively high in rookie drafts, probably like the 201, 202, 203 in that kind of realm. And now he's probably going, if we were to do it again, he's probably in the late 2nd, early 3rd kind of area. And that is what he would consider a face planter. And that is what, you want to try and avoid. My issue with Terrace Marshall is, though, he's someone that we all kind of knew was raw coming out. Like, he's only really had a season and a half of college production under him, where he was behind Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson in his first year, and then did do, solid production when it was him and Kayshon Boutte. But, since going to the NFL and having Sam Darnold and Cam Newton and PJ Walker as his quarterbacks, he hasn't really done anything, to the point of now he's even behind Shi Smith. So, apparently. So 5 is kind of on the low end for me. Somewhere between 5 and 7 is what I'd say. I'm definitely not at a full 10, but it's not fun, seeing Terrace Marshall do this.
I'm at a 7, just because I don't know. It's like Robbie Anderson didn't play well this year. That wide receiver 2 spot was up for grabs if he wanted to have it. Never mind the wide receiver 3 spot with Shi Smith. Congrats to him. He grabbed it. And I feel another thing that was kind of a comfort was, Joe Brady knows how to use him. Like he'll fit in with that kind of similar offense. Joe Brady gone now. He's still talented. Just his draft capital alone, he's still talented, which is the reason I can't really go to a 10. And also because that passing attack for majority of the year has been asked. But like there's a decent amount of concern. Also because I was never really the biggest Terrace Marshall guy to begin with.
But before you guys chime in, I just think he's going to be our Bryan Edwards of this year, where he was the preseason king going into it, and I think he's going to be the preseason king again going into this upcoming year.
Yeah, I can see it.
Will he actually produce? I don't know. Yeah, he's Terrell Owens mixed with Randy Moss with Davante Adams.
So, like, I guess for me, my panic level on Terrace Marshall would be low, but it would be low for where I had him ranked in the preseason.
Because you already had low expectations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I had him as like a mid-third round grade in rookie draft. So like I think I would still spend like that mid-third round, like mid-late third round rookie price on him. But I guess if you drafted him highly, like you're clearly panicked, dude. I'm with Lounis. I'm at like a 7 and 8. I think this has kind of been like the worst case scenario. The whole he doesn't seem like he's a mature dude. He seemed lazy on tape at LSU. That was one of the big things that scared me. And clearly, whether it's that issue or something else, is keeping him literally just off of the field. Like it's not even like he's a Dyami Brown where he's seeing the field. He's a little injured.
The healthy scratch was the one point.
Matt Rule alluded to it. I've talked about it on the podcast too before, where he was showing how DJ Moore ran 40 yards down the field to make a big block, and then he was like, yeah, and then like the following couple plays, Terrace Marshall like just he didn't make a block, and he's a rookie and he's got to learn to do that. So it does lend credence to what Frank was saying earlier with the, maybe it's that reason why now we're seeing Shi Smith instead of Terrace Marshall. Who knows?
The thing is, though, is that there is a little part of me that is not, because someone like a Bryan Edwards, even though I South Carolina alum, to me, Bryan Edwards was always too inconsistent for me to kind of go in on. I liked him a little bit after, like in that rookie season, but after that, I was not trying to target Bryan Edwards. Dude, Terrace Marshall, you cannot deny his upside. And even though he has all this shit going against it, the guy is a freak athlete. And if he does figure it out, you're talking about a guy that has top 10 potential in the NFL. So, like, if he gets to the point where he's kind of free and, like, throw in, maybe I'd look if I had a roster spot and on a rebuilding team to get him for free. But I don't think he's at that point. So, as of right now, I wouldn't look to purchase him.
If we saw the bean counter effect that happened last year, the likes of Denzel Mims and Jalen Reagor, their value just started like plummeting during the offseason simply because so many people were talking about like those rookies that don't produce. So, I mean, he probably won't be free, but he will be cheaper.
But I'm talking more of like the Van Jefferson, where it's like Terrace Marshall really hasn't been given a chance. Reagor and some of these other guys, Denzel Mims and whatnot, they were given a chance and they kind of fucked the chance up and they sucked. And they have sucked.
You're not putting it lightly.
I mean, he's not wrong.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Like,
no.
Terrace Marshall hasn't a chance yet, really.
I mean, that's the thing is, I think that goes.
I mean, the concerning part is
stuff we don't see.
Yeah, it's like he hasn't played well enough.
But we saw him in preseason. We saw him in preseason. He was
He could be
dominant.
on, what's the
Arcega-Whiteside
Bucks running
played
back?
well.
What's his
Yeah,
name?
sure. Keyshawn Vaughn.
Keyshawn Vaughn. Yeah,
Vaughn.
maybe he's the Keyshawn Vaughn or the Josh Rosen, where it's like Josh Rosen kind of got a chance, but like he's so bad in practice and just lazy that he never gets the chance. I guess that's the concern, but
Yes, that's what I was getting at.
I like to believe he's the Brandon Ayuk. That's my.
Yeah, you
I'm
also
sticking to
said
it.
there's no way
Okay.
the guy Joe Brady handpicked won't produce. So
Look, they fought Joe Brady. They didn't want to listen to Joe Brady. Joe Brady was trying to lead him to the truth. All right, moving on to Dyami Brown.
Yes.
Yeah.
Another rookie
quickly move
receiver.
away. I'm sure.
Washington football team. Frank kind of just talked about him. I think he's seen the field.
Yeah, I think the
That's right.
panic's got to be pretty high.
Yeah.
I mean, similar to
it's well,
6. I'm giving it a 6.
I'm giving it.
yeah,
oh man, I
6,
feel bad for
7.
giving it similar. I was gonna say like a 6.5, just because the Washington pass catchers have gotten injured this year. Like I think we mentioned earlier, Curtis Samuel, who they just gave that big contract to, Logan Thomas, who was their number 2 last year after McLaurin. It's just been McLaurin, and then like who does he have? DeAndre Carter, Humphreys, like.
Yeah, DeAndre Carter is looking the best.
Yeah, like DeAndre Carter is the other outside receiver. Like that's the concerning part. Like I'd like to think Dyami Brown can beat out DeAndre Carter by this point in the season, for that outside receiver spot. But he's at the same time he hasn't been to the point of like Terrace Marshall where it's like shit, he was a healthy scratch. Like so he's slightly less, but I'm still concerned about Dyami Brown. I also was just higher on Dyami Brown before, so I kind of have more faith naturally.
I think a lot of these will be like how high we were. Oh, I don't know if we just lost Frank, but how high we were at the start of the season compared to how high we are now. Our biases are gonna click in with this. So, to me, I don't know. I just think it's similar in regards to what you're saying before. He just hasn't. Like he's seen the field, hasn't seen targets getting outplayed. I don't know. I'm sticking with 6. Anything to add, Jake?
No, like I said, 6, 7. It's just tough when he gets the opportunity, like Luna said, and he doesn't do much with it.
Mm-hmm. Now that I just checked, we're still good. We're still live, by the way.
Okay. Frank's panic is a 4. He something happened with his computer. All right, moving on to Rashod Bateman. Rashod Bateman for the Ravens, he's kind of seen a decrease in snaps and targets since he's come back from injury. He's losing stuff to Sammy Watkins and Devin Duvernay. To me, it's still 4.
Oh, dude! I mean, you're supposed to be the Bateman fan.
Well, okay, 3. Like, it's not a 1.
I was
a
gonna
1
say,
is
like,
nothing.
I was gonna say like maybe 2.5, 3.
Okay, 3. I'll give.
3.
There's some credence to like. You gotta start showing me some stuff.
Me flashes. That's the thing. With
he showed me in the first
games.
couple games. He was getting like he was the guy that Lamar was turning to for first downs. Like he was the clutch receiver.
He made some nice plays, and I'm not talking like Terrace Marshall kind of where it's like, oh, you had a deep catch in the 4th quarter of the Week 4 preseason game. Like he had some nice like regular season important catches. Especially those first couple games, Frank put the injured guy from SpongeBob over him. But I was gonna with Bateman. I'm pretty confident. He has the capital. He's in a good offense. That wide receiver, that other outside receiver spot is gonna be wide open next to Hollywood. I'm not worried about Bateman.
Okay, so hear me out on this one. Hear me out. Coming from the sell all Ravens guy, I think this is a prime. I'm not panicking because I think he is a talented wide receiver. I liked him at Minnesota. I would sell at what he's currently at. I think
he's still like, wasn't he wide receiver 25?
He's still at like a top 25 dynasty wide receiver. You're gonna command a 1st-round pick for him. You probably got him in the early 2nd, and that's just stonks right there.
I mean, that's okay. No, that's an interesting question now. Like,
I'm not panicking on him because I think he's a talented wide receiver and he still commands trade value. So I'm not panicking, but my personal self, I would sell at this price he's at right now.
So what you just said, where I find it interesting, because I think Bateman's going to be fine. I had him as like an early 2nd grade, and for an early 2nd, that's where I still have him. Where you said the late 1st, if I get a late 1st for Bateman with this receiver class,
if I could get any 2023 first, I'd do it. Probably.
do it. Yeah, like the first
2022, it might be a little tough.
I think there's obviously someone in your league that's similar to JT that was very high on Bateman, rightfully so. I had a very high prospect grade on him as well. But if you can get that late first and just basically trade up from a second to a first, just having to hold Bateman for a year, I'm doing it.
That's true.
That's fair. I mean, my trade, according to the keep trade cut value, my favorite trade would be Claypool's wide receiver 24 and Bateman's 25. If I can find a way for Bateman and another small asset for Claypool, I do that in a heartbeat.
Exactly. Even if it's just like a 3rd round pick in Bateman.
Yeah, something like that.
Claypool, sure.
All right, I'm going to guess this is going to be our last segment, so I guess we don't have to speed through it. So Trey Sermon, 9. I've got 9 for Trey Sermon. What about you guys?
10. Very panicked.
You know what?
I mean, for a guy that receives so much hype in the preseason, and everyone's like, "Oh, there's no running back here," especially, and then Mostert got hurt week 1. Everyone's like, "Oh, this is Sermon's backfield. There's no chance anything going on." The Elijah Mitchell, the late round pick, has completely outplayed him. The Niners just seem to be trying to find a way to not play him and playing Jeff Wilson and JaMychal Hasty and all these other guys that are, quality running backs, but nothing of what we expected Trey Sermon to be. And I just don't think there's really a rebound from this point that you can see coming.
So mine's high. I'm between 8 and 9. The only reason I
would be the lowest of us. If you're an 8, you're actually calm on him compared to us.
I think it's just because, man, the 49ers backfield is so unpredictable year to year. Like that.
I mean, every week Elijah Mitchell's been healthy. He's been the guy. It hasn't.
I said year to year, not week to week. Hear me out. It's the type of thing where I don't know. If Trey Sermon outplays Elijah Mitchell next training camp, Sermon would be the guy. Now, with as good as Elijah Mitchell's looked, it's tough because Elijah Mitchell's looked really fucking good, and Shanahan would just keep on using him. I don't know if I could just go to 10 just because it's kind of one of those things
between a 4th round pick and what was Mitchell, a 7th round pick.
I know, but Mitchell
not that big of much draft capital, and on top of that, we know Shanahan doesn't give 2 shits about draft capital.
Doesn't.
He's done it before, where he just plays whoever's good, and it's clear that Mitchell clearly fits this offense more than Sermon does.
I know. I think
I was the lowest on Sermon of all of us heading into the draft, and this is exactly the problem I had with him. Was he didn't have a lot of success at Ohio State. He did not. It was really just that college football playoff run where he looked really good for 3-4 games. And that was it. And everyone just expected that to continue. There was a reason he was a 4th round pick in the NFL. And I think we're seeing it. He has holes in his game. And Shanahan just rather go with the guy he's more comfortable with.
Is that Michigan running back, the new Trey Sermon?
Haskins?
Yeah.
Hassan Haskins? I mean, could be. I don't know what his...
To be determined? I don't
know if he's going to get drafted. I don't know what the deal is with Hassan Haskins.
I haven't watched enough tape on Haskins to make that claim. So
everyone started talking about him after the Ohio State game where he scored how many, 4 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns.
All right. Travis Etienne. Trevor Etienne. I'm done. Travis, yeah. Trevor, where's Trevor? Is Trevor at UMD or Clemson? That's his younger brother. I don't know.
I don't know.
Trevor, I think he's at Clemson. I might be logging though.
I would wager to bet Clemson.
Yeah, I feel like Jake would know if he was at Maryland.
Clemson. All right. Sorry. So he's injured. Liz Frank injury. We're talking about him probably not going to be fully healthy next year. Full production. I mean, 3, 4.
I was about to say 3. Here's the thing. I say 3 with an asterisk. I'm not. I don't have my expectations insanely high next year. I'm basing this injury recovery the same way I viewed it. I saw it with Debo. I know Debo took a little bit of time.
Debo had a Lisfranc sprain, which is very different than a Lisfranc fracture. The guys that have the fracture don't come back, and that's why my panic is at a 7. I don't want any part of this. I don't want
mean,
a single part of this at all.
If I could trade Etienne for Cam Akers, and according to Keep Trade Cut, they're ranked like equal, I'd do that. Just because we've seen Cam Akers play in the NFL, and while an Achilles injury is not great, neither is the Liz Frank. And I just think Cam Akers is coming back to it, like as long as he beats out Darrell Henderson, like that role is his, and that's a big time role. Where with the Jaguars, I don't know what the deal is with James Robinson or Laviska Shenault and all the other stuff. I don't know what Travis Etienne is going to come back to. So to me, I would try and move him, which apparently you can do on Keep Trade Cut. So I don't know.
The problem with Etienne is that his value has roughly stayed the same.
No, it's definitely fallen.
So but in terms of what it would take to get him, like in the rookie draft, he probably went between 110, 112 in that area. Like, I don't think the guy who drafted him is going to give him up for anything less. And
you might get him for an early second. I think you can probably get Etienne.
He's worth a 2022 late first, according to Keep Trade Cut.
So
a little bit more.
In terms of that, his value has stayed the same. When we have really never seen a running back really come back from a Liz Frank fracture. So in that sense, if I can get a first and just basically mortgage that pick into a new first, I'm going to do it every single time.
All right, I'm back.
Welcome back.
You're lucky that
Frank.
JT, that I didn't have all my Rashod Bateman slander.
Oh wait, I kind of.
Are you a Rashod Bateman hater? I wasn't like I.
What would you have said?
I was a little higher on the panic meter than these guys, or than Lounis at least.
What would you have said between 1 to 10?
Probably like a good 6, 7.
Oh,
for the Bateman.
We're all over the map then on Bateman. This was at like a 2, 2.5. I was at like a 3, 4. Jake was at like a 5.
I would have had like a 10 on Sermon.
I mean, we all said very high on Sermon.
Yeah, we had 9.
Like I was like the most pro Trey Sermon, and I was still like between 8 or 9. it's bad.
Yeah, was I eligible for the IR there? That's a good point.
I don't even want to know what happened. All right.
I don't know. My computer just destroyed.
Well, actually, Frank, we're moving on to your guy right now, Zach Wilson.
Can you say 0?
2? I'm not concerned about Zach Wilson.
Yeah, like a 1 or a 2.
Wow, you guys are low.
He just played well.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about his best game of the season so far, or maybe second best game. If
I still think that Titans game was all
right.
I mean,
6 or 7 for me.
6 or 7?
Yeah. Think about it. You just used a probably top half rookie draft pick on him. Probably lowest was like 107. You probably got him at. Like, to have him put up these numbers in a Jets offense is just you're a little worried. Well, I mean, I would be concerned. Like, we've seen it. We've seen the Jets do this a bunch before. They take a young quarterback, a new coach, and they think it'll work out, and it doesn't, and then they just move on to the next pair. It concerns me.
My thing is, he's currently giving us Mac Jones numbers, but you drafted him 5-6 picks ahead of Mac Jones, and that's on his good days. He's giving you Mac Jones numbers.
Yeah, but I mean, that's current numbers. If we're talking ceiling, Zach Wilson's a significantly more talented quarterback than Mac Jones.
What I don't understand is why is Zach Wilson getting all the hate and the panic from the community, but then there's nothing for Justin Fields, and Justin Fields is still valued as a QB1.
I think. Well, at least one of the difference. But I think Zach Wilson isn't. I think he can move a little bit, but I think one of the major differences is that Jets coaching staff is going to have maybe like 3 years with him. We know Justin Fields, they're getting Nagy out of there after this season. And I think with him, it's just the optimism with the coaching staff change. I think that's kind of the different factor. And also probably just people liking Fields more coming out of college.
Yeah, but here's my qualm with the community is that I feel like the hate for Zach Wilson is for people that aren't Zach Wilson. You're just saying what Jake said. Oh, the Jets have done this before. The Jets, they can't get anything right, all that shit. And what I say is, how is that different from the people that were saying, oh, you can't judge Justin Fields because of previous Ohio State quarterbacks? Why are we going to judge Zach Wilson based off of previous Jets quarterbacks? I think that Zach Wilson has improved a little bit. I mean, he had like 2 errant throws that last game, one of which resulted in an interception. I think that the general high throws from Zach Wilson this season have been a little bit concerning. I will give you that. So that's why there's, I guess, like I'd say like a 2 on the panic meter. There's a little bit of a panic for me, but I think that Zach Wilson is still fine. And if you can get him at this current QB2 keep trade cut price, I would like to do that. I think that that's a good move.
He can. I mean, the
Sure,
biggest
but
thing
what do
with
you-
Wilson for me is he can make throws a lot of NFL quarterbacks can't make. I believe that.
I mean, yeah, but
Arm
we've seen
strength?
that. We've seen that before. If you're just going to use pure arm strength, like we've seen that.
That
it
matters
doesn't
to
pan
me.
out.
Talent matters to me, even if they haven't figured it out yet. Like if I think this player has talent, and I think they will figure it out.
I
Obviously,
just think that
listen,
we
I'm not-
finally saw him start to look comfortable the last game. So I think these couple of games, I wanted to victory lap this week, but the Jets fucking lost because they suck.
They weren't beating the Eagles.
I thought that this was the week that we finally see Zach Wilson take a step forward, which he did. It wasn't
Yeah.
He did.
amazing or anything,
he
but
played
it was
all
a
right.
step forward. He started looking better. I think we will continue to see that at the end of the season. And if you have Zach Wilson, he's actually playable now.
And the Eagles, they're not a terrible defense. They're not like one of the top ones, but they're not terrible.
Well, Corey Davis got banged up again during the freaking game. The dude hasn't been able to stay on the field.
Well, I think what's encouraging is him and Elijah Moore are starting to build some chemistry also, which we didn't see at the beginning of the season. Elijah Moore's kind of been on fire the last couple of weeks. But unless anyone has anything else to say on Zach Wilson, moving on to another receiver, Josh Palmer for the Los
Wait, real quick,
Angeles
I want to touch
Chargers.
on Etienne because I never got to touch on Etienne.
Go ahead.
The one thing I will say about Etienne, because I've flip-flopped on my opinion with Etienne and whether or not I packed with him. The thing that you do have to remember is that this guy is still really fucking good.
I
Like, he's
like
a good
Etienne.
receiver. He breaks a ton of tackles. I mean, we were talking about Javonte breaking tackles. Etienne had the second highest forced missed tackle rate of my own personal tracking, which I actually had rules for. I don't know how PFF and all of them do it because there's actually like a lot of subjective stuff in a lot of these rates and what is and isn't a forced missed tackle in my estimation. Like, I had to come up with a whole like
different-
fucking checklist of like what
different-
was and was not.
different analytical I guess groups, whoever are doing it, like they have their own little metrics, like for example like percentage of like wide open wide receivers hit, like what do they consider wide open, like how close does the defender need to be, or like what's technically a broken tackle.
But I don't know, Etienne, if you can get him at any sort of discount, I think I would. I was kind of in the camp of I wouldn't, even just a couple days ago, but at this point, dude, I like Etienne, and I think that he's going to be decent when he comes back.
And-
I don't know about the injury itself. All right,
Frank is not-
I've gotten boned on buying injured players before. Like I'll be the first one to admit that that's my kryptonite.
Right. Frank, I got two things for you, right? Cam Akers or Travis Etienne? Which one?
Cam Akers.
It's not a question.
Not a question.
I'm pretty sure Etienne's higher on keep trade cuts.
Yeah,
than Akers.
Etienne.
he actually?
Yeah, he is.
I think he's
I
very
couldn't
close.
point to where the fuck the Liz Frank is.
Yeah,
to be
all right,
honest,
Frank,
so-
Foot.
Frank, in terms of injuries, right? We're gonna go with the Harry Potter analogy here, and I'm gonna go with spoilers. So, George Weasley, he lost an ear when he was, George Weasley lost an ear.
Where are
Fred-
you going with this?
Fred
Skip to the
Weasley,
punchline.
Fred Weasley got killed. Between Akers and Etienne, which one's the one losing the ear, and which one's the one that's just getting killed? Like, which one do you think is just going to
Dude,
lose their
I don't know.
fantasy value the most? I guess I asked the wrong person because you're not the doctor of this group. But to me, I just think Etienne's more likely to get his dynasty value killed per se, while like Akers is the one who might just lose an ear. Where if I'm thinking about this right, like we've already seen what Akers can do. Like there always will be Akers truthers. Etienne, we haven't seen what he can do. If he has a bad season, he'll have the excuse, but his value is just going to take like a huge hit.
The
All right.
Etienne victory
Here's
lap
the
in next
history.
season by me and Frank is going to be glorious.
I just think that come
I traded for
startup
Etienne
draft,
in the league.
I just think
I have them both in the 3rd and 20 league.
like I think that
Forgot
trading
about that.
for him is a little bit worse because you kind of have to give up a 1st-round pick, and the ETN manager roster is not going to do that. But in a startup, dude, I feel like he's going to be going like around a Miles Sanders price to me, and I mean probably a little bit before that, but I think in that scenario you can get a running back with some real upside at a very favorable price.
All right. So just to give you an idea of players that have had this Liz Frank fracture and surgery. Cedric Benson never played again.
Yeah, but he's trash.
Cedric Benson had a very good NFL career. Anyways, and like the asterisk with this is we've never seen it from a rookie. We've never seen a rookie get this and try to come back from it this early. But Amir Abdullah, career backup. Ronnie Brown, out of the league in 2 years after surgery. Santonio Holmes, out of the league 2 years after the surgery. Darren McFadden, never a starter again after the surgery. MJD, out of the league 1 season afterwards. Cam Newton hasn't been good since 2018 when he had the surgery. Jake Locker played 1 more season. Matt Schaub, 1 season. Alshon Jeffrey, 1 season. So as there's no real success stories.
Yeah, but half
from
those
this-
guys,
a lot
from
of
this-
those
were like
guys are
30.
older.
Yeah,
A
half
lot
those
of
guys
those
were
guys
And that
are
is
older.
so weird. He didn't play well until he was 27. He put up 1,200 yards.
He had off the field issues. Yeah. So that's what I said. There's an asterisk where we've never seen a player this young get it, but just the history of the injury is very bad.
I think,
Where is
I
the
think
I
Liz
don't
Frank
really
located
want-
on the
similar,
foot?
It's
Like
kind
the
of similar
top, I
with
think.
Cam
Like if this
Akers
is your
because
foot, I don't know.
if you're
Yeah.
gonna
I
say
gotta
that with
find this.
ETN, it's the exact same thing with Akers where we haven't seen a
No,
running
it's-
back come back from an Achilles.
But we've seen we've seen receivers, we've seen other players. I didn't just name only running back. I named receivers, I named quarterbacks. I'm just talking.
Why
an
don't you about
athlete.
talking you're backs though? Like we haven't. If you're gonna say that
I
because
mean-
they're both young, like they're both what 22, 23 years old.
We just saw Emmanuel
was
Sanders
impossible to
come
predict.
back from an Achilles at the age of like 32. Like we've seen. I know different sport. We've seen Kevin Durant come back from it and be a All NBA caliber player
Liz
again. I know a
Frank.
different sport, but we've seen the Achilles injury come back from. No one comes back from this injury and is the same. And I know we've never seen it, but I think that we've never seen him play, and I think that's an escape. That's where you go, okay, I'll take a 1st-round pick where I drafted him and say, you deal with it, because I don't want
Oh
any
no,
part of
I'm not liking this Liz Frank.
it. Yeah, no, you don't want it.
See, the one thing I know about running backs, I'm trying to hold on. I don't know how to fucking maneuver this. Okay,
Back
here.
to LaDainian Tomlinson.
Yeah, the thing is that the most important part of your foot for a running back is like right up along here, like this inside part of your foot, because you're always on like the balls of your feet. So like it looks like it's right in the middle of your foot. So that is seemingly a little bit dicey, but I don't know, dude. I think the injuries are fugazi, man. Some guys you can deal with them. Some guys they fucking die. All right, I'm willing to just roll the damn dice, dude. I'm at the craps table and I'm shooting.
Listen, if you want him, by all means. But the problem is the price is still as high as you drafted him, which is the problem.
Yeah.
If his price had fallen to a mid-second round pick, I understand the gamble there. He is a very talented player that is very young and could come back from it. But the fact that the price is still that late first, I don't want to touch it at all. And if I could get the late first, I would just say your problem now. Like I said,
I think in the interest of time, I'm just going to group these next 5 guys together, and you guys just shout out who you're least panicked about and who you're most panicked about, because they're all just wide receivers that were probably
one of
drafted.
these people shouldn't be on this list.
I mean, one
Well, okay.
we're definitely going to be very panicked
All
about.
right,
but
so
yeah.
Josh Palmer, D. Eskridge, Amari Rodgers, Tylan Wallace, Amon-Ra St. Brown.
I'll say Amon-Ra I'm not concerned about. I think he's starting to play, but he just had the best game of his career.
I mean, let me put it this way: none of these guys are below a 3 on the panic. Like at the very minimum, there are 4. I think I'd have on the panic scale for these 5 guys.
Amon-Ra's
then-
lower than a 4 for me.
He's probably my lowest at 4.
I mean, the caveat with these guys is that they were all outside of Amon Ra, who was probably a second round pick. All the other guys were probably a third or fourth round pick in rookie drafts. So like
I think Amari Rodgers
had
was a
to-
late second.
I was
Am
about
I
to
a
tell you.
crackhead that I still want to buy Amari Rodgers? Is that a crackhead?
Oh,
move?
he's the one I'm the most
The-
panicked about.
So I
have
was
like a
about to
knock
say.
on him.
I was about to say the same thing. Amari Rodgers is the one I'm most panicked about.
I mean, Tylan Wallace, you have to be
Wallace is
panicked
second.
about. He has
Those-
Yeah,
Well,
but the
yeah.
thing is, you
Yeah,
gotta
it's
remember,
half
this is the
played.
Packers we're
Those are the
talking
top
about.
two.
They're like, they run their organization as if they are like a 75-year-old grandpa, dude. Like, they're willing to give their guys so many chances.
Yeah,
Dude,
but who's throwing the ball to him next year?
I don't give a fuck because no one's throwing it to him now. I need him to
well,
get on the
no.
field first. Like, the thing is,
Yeah,
is they,
well,
right
next
now
year
he's
he won't be
pennies.
on the field or
I
having
think
the
right
ball
now
thrown to
he's
him.
pennies. They're gonna move on from the Randall Cobbs. You know, Marquez Valdez-Scantling's gonna find himself somewhere else. I think that Amari Rodgers, they are willing to develop him. You know, I think that they have more of a long-term plan than, oh, we needed to. That's what the freaking Packers do, dude. They take their players and they're like, yeah, we'll take Jordan Love in the first round because we need a quarterback in 19 years. You know, it's like, and they're willing to sit there and fucking develop his ass for 9 years, waiting for the perfect opportunity. I think that they're going to do the same thing with Amari Rodgers. And like when you see guys like Aaron Jones eventually go and these other receivers and whatnot, I think that we're going to see Amari Rodgers be used, whether he's fantasy relevant or not. I have no idea, but you're getting to the point where he's pennies.
Yeah, I just think for the most part, all these guys are pennies.
You
And
know
should
what?
remain
Fine. I'll
pennies.
put the bait on me. I'll admit that I'm
Okay,
taking
yeah.
the bait. All right. I
Yeah.
think that's fair.
Even Amon-Ra St. Brown, he was the one who had the game-winning touchdown against the Vikings, right? To me, it's just like the opportunity he has. Like, there's just no one else there to catch the ball for the Lions, so it's just like,
He's beating out Khalif Raymond for snaps right now.
sure, like the Lions are gonna have a ton. Like after Jared Goff's gone and everything, you know, whether that be this year and next year or whenever they get rid of him, they're gonna have a ton of cap space, and you know. I don't know if any free agents are looking to go to Detroit, but they will have the room to make
No, they're
moves.
not.
Yeah, that's true. I just think any wide receiver shows up there, he's screwed.
Matt Hill. So we were supposed to wait 9 years for Amari Rodgers and Love to develop LMAO.
Dude, they're gonna look real nice on your
Listen,
they'll be your
I'm
10th-year taxi squad.
I'm out on Amari Rodgers.
I am too.
I'm out on Amari
I might be
Rodgers.
the fact that Matt Hill just said my argument back to me. I might be out on
anything else you guys want to add on any of these guys?
I actually think
Eskridge scored.
Yeah, Eskridge has looked great. Not great, but he's looked good in limited snaps. I mean,
yeah, it's been limited, and I think he had a bit of a disadvantage with Geno Smith started 4 games and Russell Wilson his first 2.
The problem was he was out most of those games. He had a concussion week 1 that knocked him out for like 6-7 weeks. He was out for a while with this concussion. He's just now. I think this is his 3rd game back. He scored this week, so I'm interested to see how the Seahawks try to use him. He was their first pick in this year's draft, so I don't think they're just throwing him away.
Yeah.
Let's play the game. Let's do the rank game. We have to rank them. How many of these guys are there? There's 4?
5.
5. Oh, we're including Palmer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. If I had to rank them, I'm probably going Amon-Ra, Palmer, Eskridge, Rodgers, Wallace, or Rodgers. Those 2 are just tied for last, but it's Amon-Ra, Palmer, then Eskridge above them.
I'd probably. Yeah,
I still like Palmer a lot.
I think I agree with Lounis's ranking. I almost flip-flop between Palmer and Eskridge.
Yeah, those 2 was tough.
I'm not like there's nothing that exciting about Palmer, to be honest. Like he's just there.
What's exciting about him is Justin
go-
Herbert.
Yeah.
No, I like Palmer.
Amon-Ra 1, Eskridge 2, Rodgers 3, Palmer 4, Wallace 5.
Poor
The
Tylan.
the problem I have about Palmer, I think he's a good player. I think he'll be relevant, but not relevant for fantasy. I just think he doesn't have enough
Yeah, I
in his
think I'm in the same
toolbox
boat
to
with you.
be like a really great fantasy asset.
I think I have Eskridge 1, Amon-Ra 2, Palmer, Rodgers, Wallace.
I was thinking about putting Eskridge 1 just because, dude, I think he has the highest ceiling, even though there's so many flaws with him.
What a fall from grace Tylan Wallace has for you, Jake. He was your guy at the draft, and now you have him fifth out of these guys.
I mean, he doesn't see the field.
Yeah,
He doesn't see the field.
When you got
mean, if he
the
does see
likes
the
of
field, I'm
Sammy
not sure his
Watkins and
ACL
Devin
is gonna
Duvernay and
last.
James Prochet, it's difficult to get on
It's
that team. All right, well, I think this is a good place to end it. We could get into what we were talking about, what we have saved for next week, because we are already running kind of long. So I think we'll have, episode 19, we'll have some exciting stuff, potentially a mock draft. So yeah.
Thank you to everyone who joined us in the chat tonight. Leave your comments.
Chat was kind of popping.
Yeah, we encourage you, keep tuning in. We live stream every Tuesday night.
Every Tuesday.
7:30 starting around 7:30, going to around 9 p.m. So feel free, throw any messages or questions you have, any comments. We enjoy all of it. We appreciate you guys.
Yeah, thank you. And if you're on podcast, thank you all for listening there too. I know you're trying to avoid Lounis's face. I get it. So
I'll
see
just
you
turn
guys.
my camera off next time.
Thanks, guys.